So in today's video, I will be hiking up in Cypress Mountain in the Vancouver area, and then I will be coming back to my studio to paint something. That's very different than my past hiking videos where I do paint on location and I take all of my painting gear up into the forest to paint. But this time I thought I would try something different, go out, go for a hike, explore, see what I see, take lots of reference photos, still share that story with you, but then paint back in my studio in a closed environment with my acrylics. I use a slightly different process when I'm painting indoors rather than outdoors, and hopefully you enjoy it just as my other hiking videos. I'm very excited to see what you think. Hello there. Today we are hiking on Cypress Mountain. I am going to go up Black Mountain and then hopefully to Eagle Bluffs. I have not been there before, but it's just down the hill, down the mountain from Black Mountain. Let's make sure we are on the right spot. There's just a marker up here. Baden Powell Trail to Black Mountain. That's the one we're going to be taking. I am there, and we're going off onto this navy down here. So to explain a little more of where I'm going, I'm starting at the Cypress parking lot, and then I'm heading up the mountain. I am going to hike the mountain, but you can, for $30, take the Eagle Express Quad chairlift up to the top of Black Mountain. I spent some time at Black Mountain Peak, then I walked over the mountain down to Eagle Bluffs, spent some time there, and then I walked back over. Now that the clouds have changed and it's later in the day, I wanted to go see the views from Black Mountain again because it was on my way. And then I head towards the bottom. So my total distance was 10.29 kilometers, and my total elevation gain throughout this hike was 652 meters. All right, we got some stairs ahead and it looks like it'll be quite steep. I have not been doing hiking. This is my first hike of the year. I have been doing a ton of biking though, and so we'll see how my legs fare on this. Whew. So I just came up on this trail marker. We are heading towards Black Mountain. We will do I think the north summit so we can have the lookout, and then we'll head to Eagle Bluffs. Oh, wow. So I am here on the top of Black Mountain, just off of Cypress. It was about a 45-minute hike up here, but I was going slow and taking lots of footage. Just there, right there, you can see what I think is the east line coming through the clouds, but it's quite the gorgeous view up here, and the clouds keep opening up and putting light in different areas. So just super interesting as a painter to wonder, what could I paint from all of this? So I just got up to South Peak and just wanted to share the view with you. It's not as good as North Peak, and I was just giving some people some directions to go over to North Peak. Let's see if my arm is long enough to show you the lions. Oh, we can see two. So I'm gonna go over to North Peak and hope to capture both. They're just coming out of the clouds. And then all this way it's clouds. So this is the view from the South Peak. I hiked back to Black Mountain North Peak, and this is the view. And I specifically wanted to show you this clip. I took it with one of my cameras as I took my big DSLR out and was taking photos of the view. But watch the two sets of pine trees in the foreground. As the clouds overhead change, you can see they go, here they're lighter green, now they're darker green, and they're lighter green again. And just how, when there's a bit of cloud cover, how quickly the composition and the values and the colors change. And that's what I was mentioning, that it's so interesting as an artist to watch this change and figure out what are you actually going to paint. The clouds are moving so fast that it's constantly a new painting. This is awesome. As I trip over a rock. So awesome. Wow. All right, time to hike down and go through all of this content and see what I'm going to paint. All right, so I have made it back to the chalet at Cypress, and I'm just about to walk through the thank you for visiting sign. And I did it. I hiked to Black Mountain and then over to Eagle Bluffs, and it took significantly longer than I had expected. So now I am rushing home in hopes to beat rush hour traffic. And yeah, I'm excited to see what I'll paint. There's a few views in there that I think I'll paint. So yeah, I have to go through all this footage and go from there. So I am back in my studio, and I chose this painting of the lions as viewed from the north summit of Black Mountain. And I just gridded out my birch panel. It's a 10-inch by 12-inch birch panel. I gridded it out 4x4 because it's easy to quickly draw a 4x4 grid without a ruler. It's easy to eyeball fourths rather than thirds. And now I am laying out the outline of the painting in magenta and white. And I'm doing it very roughly because I'm using acrylic. Once this dries, it is easy to fix and layer on top, but at least this gives me a starting point for the painting. So now as that underpainting outline dries, I am now creating a palette of colors. I want to go from my lightest light to darkest dark. So right now I'm mixing ultramarine blue and burnt sienna to create gray that I'll be mixing into all of the colors. What I like to do when I'm creating this palette is mix a little bit of each color into each color. That way there's some cohesiveness in the colors, because when you're outside on a bright blue sunny day, that blue gets reflected into the mountains and into the lakes and colors of things that you're doing. And so that's why I'm mixing the blue, and you'll watch me take little dabs of that blue to put into the gray or other colors that I'm mixing. So I just added nickel azo paint, and I'm mixing that with Hooker's Deep to create my dark green as well as a lighter green. And now I'm mixing blue into it because this will be the trees in the background, foreground, if that makes sense. So in the middle ground, I guess I should call it. And I want to add a little more green, so I took phthalo green out, but I wanted to be very precious with it, so I put a tiny dot in the corner and I only added a little dab. Because phthalo green is extremely strong and you only need a little bit to make it work with the color and add some green to it. So because I'm not painting outside, I can really dial in the colors because I'm not worried about my palette drying. If I was outside, this palette, all these colors would dry within 10 minutes, whereas this total painting time takes about 3 hours, and the paint doesn't even get close to drying. So it's really nice to spend time with the colors and the paint and be very deliberate with each brush stroke. So starting out with my darkest dark in the foreground, and I'll let that dry, and I'll go into the background. Want to make sure I have a really clean brush when I go into my lightest cloud colors. And I don't want any green in there because the green is not getting reflected back into the clouds. So this part goes pretty quickly because once I have all the color mixed, I should say, because I am just laying out each color. And one thing with clouds is even the slightest difference creates a lot of depth in the clouds. So it's being very careful that I'm not going too extreme with my colors. And you can see, since my main colors didn't have pure white in them, when I finally did add pure white, it really pops that one color into the foreground. I'm going for that sky blue in the upper left corner. And now that I have the sky done and the foreground trees done, I know that the trees off in the distance will be a mixture of those two colors. So I did that last. That way I can just start dipping my brush in all the different colors, whether I need it bluer or greener or darker or lighter. I found this color the hardest to get. It's that dark blue shadow. So I want it to be darker and I want it to be a bold blue, but it's not. It looks blue to the eye, but I have to make sure it works in comparison to the other colors. Trying to lay out where those lines will be located. And now to let that dry. So I want this layer to be completely dry. That way I can really play with the colors. And I think I even cut that out just to save you time. You didn't have to watch me watching paint dry. And now you can see I'm mixing the color and I'm trying to make sure it's the same, similar gray. It doesn't have to be identical, but it at least be similar. And now I am trying to carve out those mountains because that one layer was too dark a gray. But I'm being sparse with the brush strokes, that way you can see a little bit of the layers between, and hopefully that'll add some depth in there. I love these clouds. This is why I selected this photo. I liked how those clouds offset or complemented the lower portion of the painting. And creating clouds is like painting an upside down landscape, because you want the lower part of the clouds to go off in the distance and then the upper part of the clouds to come towards you, which is the opposite of when you're painting the ground. So it's a lot of fun for the thought experiment of trying to make clouds have depth. And this tabletop I'm on has 2 layers of just drop canvas on top. And what I love about having just plain drop canvas on my table is you'll notice I just rub the brush into the canvas and it soaks up paint really, really well. And so it really scrubs out the brush and dries it out quickly. So that's why there's so many paint marks on that canvas. Trying to see if I could match that green. Darkest darks of the tree, the foreground trees. So now I really wanted to make sure that the paint was dry because I'm going to do a lighter wash just to define the mountains a little bit more. So I'm mixing some medium and then I'll be adding white paint to it to really lighten it. There's the white paint. Softening the edge a little bit and now adding it to the other side. When I do a glaze, I want to make sure that it dries before I go back in again. You could even see me testing if it was dry or not with my finger. Going back and forth, carving the trees from the background and then carving the trees from the foreground. I like when they seamlessly sit at the foreground without looking like they were painted last or painted first. So almost hiding my process. Same with the mountains, carving the mountains from behind and from the foreground. And I want the viewer's eyes to go towards those two lions, so I'm trying to add more detail. And those smaller hits of higher contrast in that area will draw people's eyes towards the two peaks. So now is the part of the painting where I mix a lot of paint for almost one brush stroke. You can see me after each brush stroke, I'm pausing and really taking a look, trying to see what catches my eye or what my eye gets hung up on, and then mixing and figuring out how to solve that. So mixing a paint and trying to get rid of that thing that distracts me. And I wasn't sure if the camera was picking up what the painting looked like without all of the gloss glare. And I decided to go back in again and put a few more details. And this is always where I get nervous, where I'm trying to not overdo it, because I like the first brush strokes, but I also want to tweak it. So I took a risk and I went back into the lines. And I also did this with a very tiny brush, and I prefer the big brush strokes, so I was getting a little nervous right now. And here is my final painting. You might have not seen it before, but it is on a thin birch panel, and then I get a floating solid oak frame, and I will mount it. It's not mounted yet, but it's also not varnished yet. But I was too excited to share this with you. So here's the final painting. So it won't have this shine on it, but it does, you can see the texture that's on the painting, and I'm holding it in place in the frame. But this is what the final painting will look like once it's mounted. And I really was too excited to share this with you, so wanted to do that sooner rather than later. And this is the view of the lions from Black Mountain. And I hope you really enjoyed seeing how I collect my reference photos, my videos, my hiking, and then also my painting process. And if you enjoyed that, please hit that subscribe button and the like button. It helps so much. And let me know in the comments if there's another spot that I should be hiking and painting. I would be very excited to share that with you in a next video. So until then, I will see you in the next painting.